I recently rewatched 28 Days Later, and it's not a stretch to say that even more than George A. Romero's classic Dead trilogy, it directly led to the amazing resurgence in zombie content we've gotten over the last 2 decades. Without 28 Days Later, there's no way AMC would have ever greenlit The Walking Dead, and it's long been the barometer modern zombie movies are measured against, even if the film itself preferred the term infected. Yet, a proper sequel has been a long time coming, with many having forgotten 28 Weeks Later, which, despite being a pretty solid effort itself, lacked Alex Garland scripting or Danny Boyle's powerhouse direction. Both are arguably even more on a roll now than they were back then, with Garland a fine director in his own right following Civil War, Annihilation, and Ex Machina, and Boyle himself an Oscar winner. As such, this is a much more ambitious film than the original was, with it designed to kick off a trilogy that tackles the way society would rebuild itself decades after such a catastrophic event. So, like the title says, this takes place 28 years after the rage virus escaped medical research laboratories, and the United Kingdom has been utterly decimated and completely removed from civilization. Yet, small pockets of humanity have learned to adapt and live among the infected. Yet, when a young survivor, Spike, played by Alfie Williams, journeys to the mainland for the first time with his father, who's played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, he believes he may have discovered a way to save his mother, who's been stricken with a mysterious illness, leading to him leaving the safety of his village in a Hail Mary attempt to get her some help. So that's a pretty good hook for a sequel, as several of the characters we follow here never even knew a world without the infected, such as our hero, and the hero in this definitely is Alfie Williams' Spike. Over the course of the film, we follow him from being a somewhat sheltered child to a young man forced to come of age long before his time, as he starts to learn the truth about the world he's been born into and how he's going to navigate it as he comes of age. Much of the movie revolves around his relationship with 3 adults, with the movie evenly divided up into thirds, the first being his father, the second part being his half-crazed but very loving mother Isla, who's played by Jodie Comer, who's ill and possibly dying, and then finally Rape finds his mysterious Kelson, a survivor who's chosen a life of solitude among the infected. All 3 actors are superb, but this is Williams' film through and through, with him delivering a raw, gritty performance that's really devoid of any cliches you might get from a movie that has a child as the lead. Technically, it's interesting how it manages to marry an unusually epic look to the franchise, with it being shot in 2:76:1 widescreen, with the grittier digital look we know from the original, with it having been filmed on some really complicated rigs that allowed them to use iPhone cameras to great effect. It feels both real and elevated, with the movie also sporting a terrific soundtrack by the hip-hop group Young Fathers, although not having the classic John Murphy theme included takes a little bit of getting used to. Yet, I also found myself somewhat deflated by the movie, and it's similar to an issue that I had with the first movie. In both 28 Days Later and 28 Years Later, Boyle and Garland do a masterful job evoking the world of the infected. Their first acts are always so strong that they can't help but lose steam as the storyline becomes less propulsive and more contemplative. This one in particular has an incredible first act, following Spike and his father as they're trapped on the mainland after dark and stalked by the infected. Everything that follows can't quite live up to the first act, similar to how 28 Days Later kind of comes to a halt after the bad guy soldiers enter the fray. It also suffers from a trend that's too familiar with movies shot back to back, in that it ends on a huge cliffhanger, which makes it feel like a movie that doesn't quite stand on its own. However, the other side of that coin is that once the other movie comes out, maybe the films will work together better as a duo and potentially even a trio than on their own. Even still, I had a good time with 28 Years Later, with Johnson, Comer, and especially Fiennes all delivering nuanced performances, even if again Williams is the true star. I'll certainly be watching 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, when it comes out next year, and I give it a solid, but not spectacular, 7 out of 10.
There's no discharge in the war.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.